8:11's the time. It's AM 650 KGAB Radio. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. So I'm going to hold on to the phone calls for just a moment because I need to talk to the man himself. I haven't seen him in a while. Dr. Taylor Haynes is back in the studio with us, and he, of course, is running for governor once again. And third time is a charm, right?
Third time should be a charm.
Okay, so for those who don't remember, I remember meeting you the first time when you got into the race at the last minute. You were right in, weren't you?
Right in.
Okay, so what happened there? Why jump in like that?
Well, the Constitution was weighing heavily and being lost then when I could see how the primary was going.
Okay.
And I really wanted to keep that particular message out there because over the years, starting in the late 80s, pushing back on people like Bill Clinton and Bruce Babbitt, pushing back on the Preble's mouth, I could see that state sovereignty was an issue. And also even locally, if we were under the Constitution, we wouldn't have some of the problems we're facing this very day.
Right.
So when are you going to start? Well, I started in 2010. That was not a well understood or well-known topic at that time, but I really hit it hard. And I think we did pretty well with maybe 13-14% of the vote in what amounted to a 2-month campaign.
But I think, and it may have been just because it was a 2-month campaign and people really didn't understand you at the time. You were not just seen as an outsider. You were a bit crazy, Taylor.
That's right. Yeah. Who is this guy? What is he talking about? What is this Constitution?
Okay.
Well, so that was well worth it at that point because we needed to have people wonder, well, what is the Constitution? Maybe this guy isn't crazy. He doesn't look dangerous. He just looks funny. Maybe he's not dangerous. So they started to read about the Constitution, and there was a core of people who understood at the time, which is why I did as well as I did. So it wasn't really me; it was those folks who know and believe in the Constitution who really helped get this thing started.
Okay, so that was the first time you ran. Now the second time, Matt Mead is running for re-election, and that time you were on the ballot and you were in the debate. You did a lot better that time around. So do you think, why do you think you're not governor this time?
Well, the second time, the message, the Constitution was not frightening anymore, and the message was out there. It was a contentious race between the governor and the former superintendent of public instruction, which I think took some attention away and perhaps even split some conservative people away because she was severely wronged and had a really strong message in that regard. But I was happy to be in the race, and I thought we did extremely well because more and more people began to understand what it is we need to do. Now, with a little more money and maybe if I could have worked somehow worked harder, perhaps I could have reached more people. But it was a real eye-opener with the support we got. The campaign went much better. Fundraising went much better, and fundraising is very important, as you know. So I thought now we've got the message out there. Ted Cruz helped a lot with his campaign, and his message been very, very almost identical. Just on the local, my message was, of course, for Wyoming. His message was for the whole republic. Well, now, here we are. People understand that we need the Constitution. We got what we might think are several crises. Many of the problems we have, including the budget problem, we wouldn't have if we were running this state strictly under the Constitution since 2010.
Okay. So let's talk about some of the issues facing us right now. And, of course, the budget issues are the big one. And I've been getting notes, well, for the past few months, but especially this morning. People are sending me on Facebook notes about, they're going to raise our taxes. They got to, and there are some in this state who think in order for the state government to survive, they have to raise taxes, especially schools. So are you interested in any raise in taxes anywhere, or is it complete budget cuts, combination of the two?
Well, in the interest of fiscal responsibility and balance between chaos and order, I would just hold the line. I would not raise any taxes, and I'd hold the line on spending. See, the spending problem we have, and we have one, and the revenue problem we have, obviously they're related. But what we're doing, we're only working with 49% of our mineral wealth. We should have 100% of our mineral wealth. And so I'm not saying we should be drunken sailors. I'm saying if we were under the Constitution, if we ran the state in a fiscally responsible, constitution-based manner, we wouldn't have budget problems. We would have an additional trust fund called Multiple Use Lands Trust Fund. and we could divide that revenue between the permanent fund and work on the interest, and then the rest could go to the general fund. But we've got some other problems. We've got a huge problem with education. We're in the top, we're 7th, I believe, in the Republic in the amount we spend, but we're not 7th in all of the test scores.
Right.
Many of our neighbors spend less than us and their kids score higher. But I don't want to just focus on how we do nationally. When you look at how we do internationally, the U.S. was 41st in math. Are you kidding me? well below Singapore, Hong Kong, and other countries in science, above Russia and China in reading only. So we've got a problem with how we deliver education. And that is what's driving immigration, V2 visas, or V12 visas. 50% of Silicon Valley IT employees are foreign-born. Well, they don't know our Constitution. They don't have our culture. They don't love us. So we're changing our culture because these people have got to have people that can work in that industry. So we need to address that problem as well. So all of these problems have gotten out of hand because we left the Constitution. We don't need the feds involved in education. That should be a local thing. Common Core, which is a follow-on to No Child Left Behind, should go. No Child Left Behind means we hold them all back. And Common Core means we make sure we hold them all back. They can't go, the bright kids can't advance until the least common denominator can master the material, which they may never master the material.
When you look at the budget for schools, remember I changed the name. It's not the Wyoming Superintendent of Public Instruction. She's the school marm.
Right.
And as governor, I would expect some kind of an executive order just to change that name permanently because it's too much to say that whole thing. So she said in the studio that she thinks that local schools, because this is handled at the local level, which it should be, she thinks they're too top-heavy. Agreed?
Well, I will agree with her. I think I came through a school system that did not have that kind of structure. The administration for the school was in the building, and their supervisors were at the state level, but they weren't set up like we are here, where you've got lots of administrators making 6, 7 figures. Well, 6 figures anyway. So what I would say is it is too top-heavy, but now, again, we're looking at a symptom. So how do you get at that problem? Do you go in there with an axe? Well, that doesn't do anything except create chaos. What you do is you reintroduce competition in the classroom, competition between schools, academic competitions like we used to have, true academic competitions. You allow the teachers. I want the math teacher to teach math. I don't want the math teacher filling out forms, doing social engineering. I want the math teacher who majored in math and math education because they have a gift for it and they love teaching. I want them to teach math. So I would really push for, and I have a lot of support among some experienced teachers, to push for a test on content, a test on fund of knowledge in each subject, K through 12. Now, that test is not to be used to throw rocks at anybody or for any punitive. It's to say, where are we? Once we know where we are, then your educators can develop a program to say how we get to where we need to be. Okay. And that's simple how you solve problems. You go to the root cause and find out what the problem is, and then you plan the solution.
So now the governor has introduced his Endow program. He's actually started to write some executive orders based on the recommendations of the Endow program. Now, my personal opinion was I didn't see anything on the list of recommendations which was the proper role of government. Did you take a look at the list of recommendations?
I did.
Okay.
And also the role of Endow. First of all, being a country boy, I do things simply. Being a surgeon, I go right to the problem first. I don't understand the things on the list that Endow have brought up. Why wasn't this task given to the existing business council? That's their job. And the other thing that you have to always worry about when the government says we're going to diversify the economy, look out.
Okay.
We're going to increase your taxes, and we're going to throw money at a symptom and not worry about what the problem is. Now, that said, some of the things that Endow mentioned, I agree with, but they've been on the list ever since I moved to Wyoming over 30 years ago.
So when we have things like, okay, we want a state airline, basically, subsidize something like that, to me, I've never seen an airline, a subsidized airline, work in any state ever.
That's because it doesn't work. And it's not just airlines. Government subsidized programs don't work.
Okay.
See, in the private sector, where my whole career has been, you have to compete and you have to have a product that people want to buy. So it has to provide a need or it has to satisfy a want. Now, when you look at air traffic and air travel, I understand how important that is to the economy, but it is a follow-on to robust entrepreneurial efforts. So if the government wants to diversify the economy, the government should fix the infrastructure. One really gaping hole in our infrastructure is education. We have totally forgotten about vocational education. We just pay lip service to it. That should come back, and I mean come back in spades. Now we're creating people who can actually do things. You need a ready workforce if you're going to attract business. We do window dressing on information technology. Look, I want our kids not to know how to use Word. I mean, you can learn that online. I want our kids to know how to build computers. I want our kids to know how to repair them. I want our kids to know how to write code. And I want our kids to be able to do research in information technology and be on the cutting edge of this artificial intelligence age. We're not looking at that. We need to look at that. And we need to use our community college system, working with our high schools, to really increase the use of vocational education. And we need to have the University of Wyoming do real research and move into the top 100 research universities in the country. When you have that kind of preparation in your workforce, if you build that, they will come.
Okay. Now, we just got, and I was excited to see Weatherby Guns coming up to Sheridan to put their factory in there. And I am all for, like a lot of people, big fans of the guns, their ammunition. However, did you take a look at the deal that was given to them to get them into the state? Would you have made that kind of a deal?
I haven't seen it, and I haven't seen it on purpose, because what I've seen our state do is spend hundreds of thousands of dollars per job to get someone to come here. And that doesn't work. That just doesn't work.
Okay, what about diversifying the tax structure as well? Because right now we are so heavy on taxing minerals. And I've often wondered, as a state, should we take away some from mineral taxes? That would encourage, by the way, more coal, gas, and oil development. And then find some way to spread it around the population, the taxes that we just took away from minerals. So in other words, when we have the next bust, and we will, then we have a more diverse tax system to draw from. We're not just relying on the mineral industry, because that's boom bust for the state as well, isn't it?
Sure. But you're on the right track, Glenn, as far as diversification. But the government playing around with taxes with our present structure isn't going to do very much. I understand what you're saying. If we're not totally dependent on the natural resource industry, then maybe we don't feel that bust so much. I agree with that. Now, when we go back to what I said about diversifying our workforce, our ready workforce, people who can do all the things that are being done in information technology, plus the basic skills. See, we have a manufacturing base, but it's geared towards oil and gas production. Well, those folks could also build all kinds of other pieces of equipment if that was available here. Well, we need to diversify the workforce, and then the people who can diversify our tax base will bring their companies here. So we're saying the same things, it's just a different approach. I want to make it possible for people to come here with a company, and they've got people that have a great work ethic, which we have in Wyoming, but also within we have the talent who can work in those industries. When we do that, the tax base will automatically be diversified without government interference. Because see, what happens when the government tries to shove taxes around, you still wind up with the government picking winners and losers, and so it actually just creates more losers.
I've heard some grumblings and rumblings about transparency in Wyoming government, and that Wyoming government is not all that transparent and needs some work. What do you think?
I think government always needs more work on being transparent, not just Wyoming. And so we have sunshine laws, and we have rules about what you can do in executive committee and that you must keep minutes. What we lack sometimes is citizen participation in insisting that those sunshine laws are followed and insisting on seeing the minutes of some executive committee meetings. So when you, by law, you cannot make a board cannot make a decision in executive committee. Right. They can discuss personnel issues and other things that might be sensitive, but when they have to come into general session, and when you see things that just happen in general session and the decision was made in executive committee, citizens should bore in on that.
Well, and part of what I'm talking about, an article in today's newspaper here in Cheyenne, some people want to sue the state auditor's office because they were after some information, and she says, I'm sorry, it takes basically a lot of work away from us here in the state of Wyoming. It takes a lot of work away from Cynthia Cloud's office in order to look all of this stuff up. And she would rather not have to do that. And that's why she's being sued right now in the state office. By the way, that's Taylor's phone that's ringing over there. Cindy Hill made the same mistake. I'm sorry, not Cindy Hill. Liz Cheney made the same mistake. I picked on her for it.
You should. And
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's the kind of transparency that I'm talking about.
Well, and the citizens have a point, and the auditor has a point. But so what's missing there? And I've got to bring this auditor's point up. What's missing is the auditor's office is not really set up and staffed the way it should be to audit the state.
Okay.
Okay, and two, one, they don't have a staff. And two, based on that answer, I'm assuming they don't have the information technology infrastructure. They should be able to go into their system and pull out any piece of information quickly.
Yeah.
So we have an infrastructure problem. Perhaps it's a long-standing philosophy gap, but the state auditor should audit our state. We do send a lot of that business out of state. Why doesn't the auditor's office audit our state and have all of that information at their fingertips? Because they haven't been endowed to do it.
Got about 30 seconds to go. The last complaint that I hear a lot of is 2 airplanes for the state of Wyoming. What would you do?
That's not one of our problems.
Okay.
It looks funny to some people, but when you look at how they're used, and you know, one of those I think is a low atmospheric research airplane owned by the University of Wyoming. I wouldn't mess with that. That's not our problem.
Okay. All right. Taylor, good luck. Where are you off to next?
I'm off. Well, we're going to have another staff meeting, and then we're going to organize the state. We've got our committee meetings coming up.
Make sure you call me whenever you're in town, all right?
And have the people go to haynesforwyoming.com and donate.
8:30 is the time. It's AM 650, KGAB Radio. Fox News happens now.